Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I just want to say thank you for joining CPX and a fantastic event for one of our prize partners, Checkpoint. And I know it takes a lot of effort to join another virtual conference and summit, but these are really important. This is where you get the biggest and best, brightest innovations that we have in the market industry. And there's no better partner and technology provider out there than Checkpoint to help us really alleviate some of those security concerns that you have. My name is David Totten. I'm our Chief Technology Officer here for Microsoft US third-party systems. And I get the pleasure of working with several partners across Microsoft that build services on top of our services. We have Azure and Office 365 and Dynamics. And our goal is to build this ubiquitous, heterogeneous environment of services that customers can take advantage of. Most of you are actually probably using a lot of Microsoft services today. What makes my job particularly interesting is I get to work with partners who actually take that baseline services and drive the actual value that you, the customer, wants to actually take advantage of. Checkpoint has done that very, very well with a very specific product knowledge and deep integration with our engineering team to help realize the value of what Microsoft can bring to the enterprise. How does that make it real for you as an end consumer of that technology? And I promise I'm going to spend some time sort of talking about that. For us, I wanted to make sure that we gave you a perspective of where Microsoft's head's at when it comes to this crazy generation of digital transformation and what we've seen, not only the past year with the pandemic and all the other circumstances we've had with people working from home, but across the entire existence of Microsoft being in business for 45 years, where we've seen customers lean, where we've seen vulnerabilities or opportunities for transformation. And so I just want to start just first with this era of flux and transformation is real, and we're dealing with it right here, right now, where everybody is seemingly in the technology business. You're all in the technology business. You're all looking at this presentation probably from a screen. Maybe it's in your office. Maybe it's in your home library. Maybe it's in your nursery. We're all now working from home in a much different way than we've ever used to. A year and a half ago, we had a saying here at Microsoft called work from work. Now it's work from home, and we're all doing it. So everybody's now accessing technology and their information in a much different experience. Number two, conventional security tools, they just don't really work. The more data and the more technology gets adopted across the enterprises and how people interact with each other throughout the world, the more sophisticated hackers get. And the conventional security tools that were created 5-7 years ago are no longer appropriate. They can't get updated fast enough. They can't take advantage of cloud scale and security. They can't keep up with the hackers and the innovation that's happening everywhere in the world. And so these conventional security tools that you probably grew up with, maybe were on your college computer or in your high school computer lab, are no longer appropriate to really keep up with market trends. Third, there was a time where Microsoft thought we could just throw and train a bunch of security professionals. We created the very first security certification path specifically for that reason. How do we train a bunch of people to look for security vulnerabilities with infrastructure and data? And then how do we actually put all those security individuals into customers, right? Into Microsoft and then into our customers. Guess what? Can't beat this with people. Again, too much data, too much interaction, too many fault points along corporate infrastructure. You can't just throw bodies at it. And what we're finding is even if you do really train, develop, and invest in this great security professional curriculum, you really got to train that person to really learn how to use technology to fight security, not just their own subject matter expertise. You have to teach them and give them tools so that they can scale. And that's where we've sort of shifted our focus in the past few years. And finally, regulatory requirements and costs are increasing. It seems like every time I think about doing an engagement and having a conversation, I'm highlighting some recent data breach, or I'm highlighting some recent customer database that got exposed. And you all know what you can do a bing.com search to see any sort of customer data references that have been breached. We just had one recently here across the globe with a very sophisticated attack. That, for the record, was not from a product of Microsoft Azure. It was on another public cloud platform, which we won't talk about. But the point is, security breaches are happening nonstop. And the cost of that isn't just about lawsuits and regulation. It's the cost of loss of trust and customer loyalty. It's the cost of being a spearhead as the vision of what happens when you lose customer faith, what happens when you expose data to people that aren't supposed to have it. And those costs are both monetary and brand awareness related. And so if you think about how tight government, healthcare, financial services, those regulatory requirements are only going to increase, all built on the bedrock of being secure and compliant with how we manage customer data. As a customer, you can make a bad product once in a while. You may have a poor customer experience once in a while. You may have a weird pricing scenario where you've priced something worth more than what a customer or client wants to purchase it for. You can get over all that, right? You can hustle, you can work, you can innovate. You can always recover from a bad product experience. You can never recover from losing customer trust. And that's the most important thing from an IT professional's perspective. How do I maintain that we'll never be on the end of a regulatory committee or we'll lose our data and put it in the hands of somewhere else where we lose customer trust? So anyway, this era in flux of transformation, I wish I could tell you that this is a new story for us, that we haven't thought about this in the past, that we haven't actually approached these problems for the past 20 years. We just see it continuing to increase in importance and obviously exposure and risk. And if you think about the different touch points that we're all dealing with right now, particularly in the cyber attack space, it's all based on the amount of interaction we have with data and technology. You know, mobile devices are everywhere now. That's the internet in your pocket. You can now hail a cab, you can order food, you can text with friends, you can like photos. You can also get access to your financial institution, and you can also get access to your corporate infrastructure and documents from anywhere in the world just by the use of a VPN or a technology construct out of your pocket. More personal laptops are coming into the enterprise, more devices, more home offices are being exploded. So how do you think about all these different touch points and how they manage and access data? How do you lock that down? And there's two different techniques. You can go to every endpoint in the world, right? And you can put a firewall on it, okay? And that's one mechanism of doing it. Hard, expensive, and more devices get created and touch networks every day than you'll ever be able to lock down. The second point is you could probably rationalize that within a single services infrastructure with anything that gets access to your data or your customer profile or your applications all has to go through a secure infrastructure. And that's where we think the cloud really solves a lot of this scale issue. The future of cybersecurity is in the cloud. Don't take my word for it. It's a quote. And we realize that there's so much data and endpoints out there in the world right now. Capturing all that, having a single ingestion formula, making a common data model, and then applying security standards on top of that is critically important. You know, believe it or not, there's still a lot of customers, again, some of you right here on this call, in this meeting, that haven't adopted cloud technology in full. Why not? Microsoft spends $10 to $15 billion a year on R&D investments for our cloud scale and infrastructure, 50 plus data centers, 140 regions, the most, sophisticated infrastructure possible for scale and security. With the cloud, you can spin up workloads and spin them down. And you can trust that our R&D department is spending, I promise, just a wee bit more than you are on protecting assets and infrastructure, okay? I know you all work hard on your own environments and really locking down those servers and making sure that you've got authentication and identity threaded throughout every experience with your server. But we spend a little bit more, and we've got more people spent their lives dedicating to keeping your infrastructure secure. And the scale and speed and agility of spinning up something in the cloud versus procuring hardware, configuring that hardware, and then securing that hardware, it's just a no-brainer to transform and transition more and more of those applications to the cloud. And more customers are doing that. We're still just scratching the surface, right? It's not just about compute and storage. It's about analytics and AI and having platforms as a service. The one thing that always comes up with customers, whether you're a chief marketing officer, a CFO, a CISO, a CIO, okay, I hear you on the cloud. I hear about pricing and scale and security. I think about spinning something up faster than I've ever been able to do before. I think about modern application development, which is so much easier and faster and more accessible in the cloud. But what bothers me is security. That's the number one concern. Read every Forrester and Gartner report from the past decade. The number one priority for anybody in IT is security, right? And that has now bled to the boardroom where they're focused on security. So you start thinking about it and you're like, okay, if there was a way, let's ponder this. If there was a mechanism to make sure that everything in the cloud was actually secure and locked down, would we feel more comfortable than taking advantage of the true innovation and the scale that the cloud can actually enable? And what we've seen at Microsoft is that is a factual statement. If we can prove it to be secure, people will come. This is some internal data that we've shared publicly. I'm not giving away any, information I'm not supposed to, but 10 billion in security business revenue is a gigantic number, right? We've always been in the security business. We've actually had to segment out security revenue to appease the street so they know how much infrastructure is going toward actual secure technology in the marketplace. Teams, we think about endpoints and people working from home, 115 million daily active users, right? Our Office 365 growth, which is our productivity suite, 21%. The size of growth that we have both in enterprise and in mid-market in SMB is incredible. And now you've got a device point with Surface. Again, one of those devices, along with iPads and MacBooks and PCs and Chrome notebooks. How you access your infrastructure, the beauty of Azure and our cloud technology is it doesn't matter where you come from, you can access it. So we've seen a significant increase in the amount of devices that want access to infrastructure, on the amount of productivity users that are interacting with data and each other and applications every single day. And then obviously with the amount of investment the companies are willing to spend to make sure that they're secure. So if you think about just the overall market growth, let's think about the other side. Let's think about it on why we're putting all this infrastructure in. And it starts with this sort of value chain of what do I actually need to secure? Identity, yeah. You need to make sure that who you are is who you are, and you've got access to your information and your data and your environment, wherever you are on whatever device you have. So it starts with identity. And we believe in Active Directory as our core product, Azure Active Directory in the cloud. That's a threaded experience from whatever database you come from to whatever application you're trying to access. You've got all these endpoints, like I just mentioned, iPads and Chromebooks and your PC and your thin client. You've got all the applications that where the value and interaction of your employees and your customers actually happens. The data that gets created from those endpoints is impossible to measure and put in a box at any given moment. By the millisecond, it grows exponentially. And then you've got the underlying infrastructure of how all of these pieces play together, whether it's networking and security infrastructure, how they play together. There are very specific and unique security requirements on each of those processes, on each of that value chain of how your employees and your customers interact with you, all the way from identity, all the way through to infrastructure. And look at this incredible data, 11 billion malicious messages, right? Blocked in 2019. That almost doubled last year, right? If you think about 2018, it was like 8 billion, 11 billion. It's up to almost 20 billion malicious messages here in 2020. 300 billion user activities were profiled. That's over 700 billion this year. Exponential growth in the number of activities that are happening to attack your infrastructure, get access to your data, okay? Endpoint vulnerabilities daily, 2.3 billion. And then cloud activities that are inspected, 12 billion in 2019. How do you do all that, right? Again, I've got all that data now in the cloud, so how do I actually make sure it's protected? Well, I want to show you something. This is how Microsoft sort of thinks about it. These are all the products that Microsoft has when we think about, secure infrastructure and all the products that we have that we put layers upon layers of security upon integration. All right, I'm a few minutes into this presentation, and I've told you about why security is important, the growth of the platform, and I've told you about how Microsoft is thinking about this as just an absolute core imperative to any client out there who wants to remain profitable, who wants to engage with customers, who wants to make sure that their trust and brand loyalty extends not just for tomorrow, but for the foreseeable future. And now I'm showing you a bunch of products. This isn't from our website. This is Checkpoint's website. Now, if I told you, you as the customer, go figure out how to protect Azure network security. You go figure out how to protect key vaults and ledger and put a layer of authenticity over our virtual machine set or our load balancer technology. You figure out how to secure the kernels of our Kubernetes service, which is incredible, by the way. You figure out how to do analytics and AI on top of Azure Traffic Manager. You'd look at me and you'd say, man, Microsoft, you're incredible. You guys care about security. You give us all this option, but man, it's a lot to manage. So what's the easy button? What's the easy button to taking advantage of cloud infrastructure at scale because you know you need to, and you know your customers demand it from you. You know the boardroom demands it from you, right? So what's the easy button to making sure that all these services and all these products that Microsoft offers up, what's the easy button to make sure that you can configure that in a way that makes sense, that's easy to use, and that from a customer's perspective, you don't have to have 20 different integration points. You can just pick one. Just give me one. Give me the one red button that works. I got good news for you. It's Checkpoint. I'm not paid for this, right? Checkpoint isn't sliding me a check or a nice fancy bottle of wine. I'm doing this because Checkpoint makes my job so much easier. Think about me trying to explain security integration and protocols across 20 different services that we offer. Again, Microsoft believes in building a bevy of services that customers can take advantage of, but gosh, it's confusing. And you get in there and you try and figure out different configuration streams on different products, and it's a nightmare. I get a partner like Checkpoint that gets to come in and say, you know what? We'll take those 20 plus products, we'll integrate it, and we'll give one seamless experience to our mutual customers so that they know when they engage Checkpoint, they're taking advantage not only of best-in-class technology security products like Checkpoint, but they're taking advantage of every innovation, every product release, every integration that Azure has to offer. That's so valuable to me, right? As a Microsoft executive who's just out here trying to tell people that, you know what, the cloud is cool. It makes sense. Go do it. Checkpoint allows us as a company to go big and bold and simplify the experience for the customer. A founding member of MSI IA, the #1 co-sell partner that we have across Microsoft. Microsoft has over 500,000 partners, okay? So if you were like, let's say Microsoft is the #1 cloud public provider in the world, there's like 10 of us in the world that fancy ourselves of global scale and reach that do public cloud infrastructure and application development. Checkpoint is one of 500,000. #1, the breadth and ease of implementation is important, right? And I'll tell you, why do I think Checkpoint is sort of the coup d'etat of the biggest and best opportunity of partnering with our technology stack? One is deep engagement with our engineering team. Remember, we're releasing new services on Office 365 with our Surface computers, with our Surface stack, with our Azure infrastructure, with Dynamics 365. We release new services every 10 minutes. We're releasing a new piece of functionality, right? And we're pushing that through the cloud. The ability for Checkpoint to be deeply integrated with our product roadmap and to basically know our services and actually configure their tools around new services that we launch before we actually launch means they are right there. When we launch something, it's not vulnerable to hackers, to bad actors, to foreign dignitaries, whatever it might be. It's fixed and it's reliable right at launch. That's awesome, right? #2, ease and simplification. They come in and they help you. You can either choose just to buy a product and implement it. You can actually do an assessment and a strategy session that sits down and explains to you how to take advantage of this infrastructure and really make sure your data is secure, right? And the third piece is just the relevancy of staying ahead of everybody else. There are bad things happening every day, and there's technology innovation and future endpoints that are happening every single day. And the fact that Checkpoint is dedicated to staying one step ahead, not only of the bad actors or of the potential scenarios which may arise in breach scenarios, right? Not only of Microsoft and with our actual product development roadmap. Checkpoint is wholly focused on staying ahead of where you, the customer, needs access to information, where you're going to want different data points and entry points into your infrastructure. They're thinking for you, with you, based on these experiences. You're going to get the experience of being a Checkpoint customer, not just to learn about industry trends and how companies like Microsoft see the future of technical innovation. You get this experience through CPX because you're a valued client and they want your feedback. They want to know where you're worried, what you're afraid of, how to better think through future innovation scenarios where you need to reach your customers with a different message. That input, they're the best in the world at gathering. They have a customer-focused, customer use case-driven mindset. And 8 out of 10 times, they're the ones bringing feature requests to us. Okay, I've said a lot. Let me summarize. 1, Microsoft believes in cloud compute. We think there's some value there. Microsoft's been in this game for a long time. And we're going to continue to invest and put resources and prioritization in cloud compute, scale, security, identity, threaded experience, heterogeneous data access and utilization, and being able to do app development and access in real time. That's really cool for us, and we're going to continue to invest there. 3, we will invest in our security and your customer data privacy, your peace of mind. We'll spend more infrastructure and resources on that than you'll ever dream of trying to do on your own. Number 4, sometimes that's complicated because we have so many products, we have so many services, you have so many different endpoints. So number 5, just push the red easy button. Just think about engaging Checkpoint and understand that from Microsoft's perspective, they're the best in the world. Number 1 ranked ISV partner out of over 500,000. Think about that. And it's, again, great go-to-market, great product innovation, great technical innovation, great engineering engagement. But number 1 reason why they're so good is because they're trying to solve your problems, okay? They're looking at it through your eyes. And the more that you engage with them and the more that you share that feedback and really prioritize the experiences that you need protection around, the better the Checkpoint plus Microsoft story gets. So listen, if you don't care about your products and you don't care about your customers and you don't care about your data and your long-term brand equity, do it for me then. Choose the easy button so that Microsoft can be better in the future to serve the billions of customers that we're trying to serve as we try and make sure that every individual and organization on the planet reaches their full potential. With that, have a fantastic week, have a fantastic conference. And remember, security doesn't stop on Tuesday. It's an always on motion. So do your work, choose the easy button, and just welcome Checkpoint Microsoft into your lives.